Hello, and welcome to our webinar on how to cope with exam stress. Now, the first thing I want us to do is to think about the causes of exam stress. And what I want you to do as a parent right now is to take a piece of paper or a notepad, and from your own experience as a teenager, I want you to write down the 3 reasons that you found exams most stressful. Once you've written down those 3 reasons, I want you to select the picture on the screen that you think best fits your experience of how you thought about and processed stress when you were doing exams. So first of all, we have this image here, like a weight is on top of you, whose pressure makes it feel incredibly hard to succeed. Secondly, perhaps that exam stress felt like a snowball growing bigger and bigger over time as stress piles up. And thirdly, perhaps you felt like an hourglass draining away until there's absolutely nothing left and you just felt empty and exhausted. Do that for me now. Brilliant, well done. So, here are some causes of exam stress. Talk to over thousands of students in many different places, all collated together from a variety of organisations that specialise in this. First of all, the feeling like you're not particularly ready or prepared. This can be when revision has been left too late. This gnawing sensation that you haven't done enough, that negative consequences are going to catch up to you, and this just builds and builds all the stress you're already experiencing. Secondly, worrying about how you feel, worrying about how you'll perform. This can be during the exam, and especially when you don't know what's in it, that fear of not knowing whether you revise the right things, whether you've spent enough time practicing on how long you should be writing specific answers for. This can build up a really horrible feeling of stress and anticipation ready for exam day. Thirdly, pressure from others to do well. This can be parents and carers or teachers, but that external pressure on top of the pressure the student is putting on themselves can cause a huge amount of stress with a variety of negative consequences. Next, pressure from yourself. Students want to excel and to do well. This pressure to achieve, to succeed, to get good grades can mean that the stress and the pressure build up over time. There could be difficulties at home or in social relationships. This could be with family, it could be with friends, and all those other really important things in life add on an additional amount to the stress already experienced preparing for an exam. And finally, coping with physical or mental health problems. The stress of an exam and this time can really exacerbate those problems. It can include worries about how those problems might affect a student in an exam as well. And it is really important to note here that stress is something that varies massively from person to person. Exam stress isn't only feeling the pressure of the exam either. It can be the pressure on the exact day as soon as you come out, wondering how you've done, and it can be holding on to this worry and constantly stressing over what your results will eventually be. So we've talked about the causes of exam stress. Now let's think about the consequences, the ways in which this stress can manifest in students. So I'm going to show you 4 pictures now, and I want you to write down the specific negative consequences that arise from these different categories. So first of all, we have emotional. This can be anything the student is feeling, the way they're experiencing, the way those emotions then manifest because of exam stress. Secondly, physical. The stress can manifest itself in unpleasant and detrimental physical ways, and these can get worse over time as well. Thirdly, we have thoughts. Now, this might seem similar to emotions, but this is more kind of how they picture themselves in this situation. These thoughts could be comparing themselves to others. It could be a general thought and fear of failure if the exams don't go well. And lastly, behaviour. How has the stress of the exam resulted in a behavioural change? Maybe quick to anger, maybe quick to upset. So for those 4 things, I want you to write down as many specific negative consequences that can arise from this as possible. Go for it now. Okay, brilliant. So let's start with emotional, and I'll put some of my ideas down. You can add them to your list as well if you don't have them. Emotional could be things like anxiety, this sense of feeling overwhelmed, feeling trapped or feeling lost. There could be a feeling of just embarrassment, maybe even feeling like they're stupid because they're not doing as well as they believe they should be. Another one can be emotional exhaustion, just feeling so amped up, going from one place to another in your head, caught up in the general stress of exams and just feeling like you have nothing left to give. Then we've got physical. This can manifest itself in ways like forgetfulness. It can change eating habits. It can cause problems with concentration if they're constantly concentrating on revision and preparing for the exam at the expense of other things. Sleeping patterns can be disrupted, and actual physical illness, feeling sick, headaches and dizziness can arise from too much exam stress as well. For thoughts, we talked about those a little bit earlier, but fear of failure, comparing yourself to other people, worrying how will that person do compared to me? They'll definitely do better and I'll do awful. And these thoughts spiraling and getting worse over time if they're not addressed. And this fear of disappointing not only yourself but others is a really, really powerful thing. Especially students not wanting to disappoint their parents who've invested so much time and effort in helping them get to this place. Now they can feel overburdened by that sensation. It can cause really negative consequences. And lastly, for behaviour. These behaviours which can manifest when the stress is getting too much and can give us really negative consequences. It could be working too much. We will talk about this later in the session, but when it comes to revision, if you revise without breaks, not only is that academically a bad idea, it means you don't retain information as well, but it can really cause a lot of damage to students emotionally, physically and mentally. We may have behaviour changing in terms of no enjoyment in the things that they used to enjoy. The general stress has permeated everything, not just exam content, and it means they're not really happy during this entire period. And lastly, maybe we have just avoiding revision. That horrible sense of needing to confront something but just not being able to bring yourself to do it, and then the lack of revision will compound the exam stress. Now, while stress is normal and important to encounter to prepare teenagers to get ready for the stresses they'll undoubtedly encounter in adult life, the most important thing is making sure that the stress they feel from exams is manageable. If it's not made manageable, this can then threaten to overwhelm them. It can have a cascading effect, especially for teenagers, jeopardizing not only their physical and mental health, but having serious consequences for their future as well. So it is crucial